Well, forced unionism in the Biden era, it's maybe even more than what we had anticipated. President Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, joins us to talk about the symbiotic relationship between the nation's unions and the big labor president, and what that has meant to workers' rights in this country over the last year plus. Good afternoon, sir. It's been a long time, too long. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Matt, and I know you're fired up today, so I'm going to have to try to keep your adrenaline up, and maybe you're just drinking some more caffeine. I listened to the last segment about Beto, and I called him a few words during the break, so I hope you feel better about that.
Did you call him? I do. Did you call him the words that the FCC won't allow us to call him?
Well, I use the word tool and bag in the same phrase. So
okay.
Okay. Anyway,
he ain't a bag of tools, that's for sure. But
there you go. Yeah. Well, it's good to talk with you, and thanks for bringing the attention to this issue of forced unionism. You know, the White House economic advisors have basically retrenched, and so have the executives at the White House, talking about how great the economy is. But for rank and file workers across the country, not only is the economy bad, but the policy when it comes to individual freedom and individual liberty in the workplace is in jeopardy as well, as you know.
No doubt about it. I wanted to get your take on it because these are difficult, desperate times for this president. We all know where his polling is, and he desperately needs big labor. He's counting on it. This was a piece in Politico that ran recently. The headline is Biden's personal recovery plan, pump up unions, squeeze big business. And the little C-deck here says it all. The president is hoping his political fate and the Democrats standing among the white working class can be saved by lifting up organized labor. The piece goes on to talk about how critical it is for this president to keep that base. When you know what that means, Mark, he is going to do whatever it is that they want at the expense of worker rights and worker freedom.
Yeah, and we're seeing that manifest itself in the executive branch policies. I mean, obviously, the legislative branch can't do a whole lot right now, and they can't do certainly what Joe Biden wants them to do, and that is to repeal all 27 right-to-work laws across the country, including Wisconsin's. In fact, at a gathering of union officials, Joe Biden said this quote, and I'm quoting exactly, Matt, so you can enjoy it as much as others should. He said, quote, "There should be no right to work anywhere in America," close quote. Now, I think he wanted to say right to work laws, but I think he said there should be no right to work anywhere in America. And his policies, when it comes to the executive branch, executive orders that he's doing and some of the appropriations that are slipping through, have empowered union officials, not rank and file workers, because we know that inflation is sky high, inflation-adjusted earnings are falling fast, that interest rates are about to rise, and as you mentioned, the $70 fill-up at the gas tank the other day, rank and file workers in Wisconsin and across the country understand that it's Biden's policies that are causing this. It's not anything else but the inflation that's created. And you don't have to be an economist to understand when you pump all kinds of money into the economy, you're going to create inflation. And that inflation right now is at what, a 40-year high? Is that right?
Yes, that is absolutely right. Awful as it sounds, it is true. Yeah, Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, joining us. But I think about this, Mark. This president has had all kinds of gaffes, including the one that you just talked about, where he says there should be no right to work in this country. He's from the party, of course, with the liberals who really truly believe that. They locked out businesses and employees for months and months at a time during the pandemic. So I don't know if that was a gaffe or just, a moment of rare honesty from this administration.
Well, yeah, and here's what we know about the right-to-work laws, the right-to-work states. So when he talks about job creation post-COVID or from the beginning of COVID back in February 2020, Matt, you won't be surprised that the 27 right-to-work states have 880,000 more jobs now than what they had in February 2020. But the 23 forced unionism states, they're still 1.5 million jobs below where they were in February 2020. But yet, Joe Biden doesn't want anyone to have a right to work anywhere in America.
That tells you a great deal, doesn't it? And I know that your organization, which has worked hard for so many years, decades now, the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, you've been dealing with well, let me ask you this. I think it's safe to say, and based on reading your website and the cases that you're involved in, you're more busy trying to defend workers' rights today than ever in the main because of this very friendly big labor administration.
Yeah, that's right. And it basically starts at the National Labor Relations Board, which is the 5-member board that controls private sector labor policy across the entire United States. That board is completely stocked with Obama appointees now, a general counsel who is a former Communication Workers of America associate general counsel. And I will tell you, Matt, that the number of cases that are coming our way, both in the private sector and in the public sector, is increased dramatically because this particular general counsel, who has unreviewable discretion when it comes to bringing charges against employers or defeating charges that employees file against unions, she basically has gone farther and is asking to do more than union officials have asked for. She wants to go back to the 1948-49 labor policy that basically says employers and employees can't talk about unionization, that there should be no secret ballot elections anywhere in the country, that basically employers should have nothing to do at all with union certification. If all of a sudden the union can prove they have a majority of workers, that's good enough for her. The union would automatically be recognized. We know over the course of decades that lots of workers try to get the union official away from them by saying, yeah, okay, what do I need to do? You sign the card and you go, and then when you get to vote in private, you can vote your conscience and vote how you want to vote. They don't want workers to go behind a curtain to vote anymore. They want them to intimidate them to sign a card, and that means you're in a union. Unions are wards of government action. They're only 6.1% of the private sector workforce today, and Joe Biden is committed because he needs that base. Just to the point you made earlier, Matt, they've got to organize that base. They've got to have that union political money in order to have any chance at winning elections.
No doubt about it, and they need it immediately coming up for November, and they'll need it long-term for 2024. Mark Mix, president of the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, joining us on the Vicki McKenna Show. Here's something, though, for you. This was a case. Let's get into the Wayback Machine, Mark, and go to January of 2015. This is a case you folks fought for and won, and it drives home the point that it's not just Democrats out there. There are people running in this state and elsewhere as Republicans who have a record in their past, at the very least, no matter what they're talking about today, of fighting worker freedom. And I'll read you this and I'll get your response to it. A former Michaels Corporation construction worker in Colorado has won a settlement from a Brownsville, Wisconsin-based company and a Colorado-based union for violating his rights and illegally firing him. Under the terms of the settlement, Castle will receive $6,400 in lost wages and $91. It goes into the details of this. But this is another one of those cases. It involves Michaels Corporation, owned by Tim Michaels. He is described in this story as a Republican Party mega donor. Today, he is also one of the, I would say, leading candidates, Republican candidates for governor. This just reflects that, workers' rights are on the line everywhere, and sometimes it doesn't matter what party people are from.
That's right, and Mr. Michaels led the campaign against right to work in Wisconsin as a Republican mega donor. We had to file charges against the company, we had to file charges against the union to protect the individual freedom and liberty of that worker. And we've got to make sure, and Wisconsinites have to make sure that they understand when they go and make a decision about the candidates they want to represent them, who is for individual freedom and liberty, and who is for coercion and force when it comes to the labor movement. I mean, Matt, I know that there's been no worker in Wisconsin today who has been denied the right to join a union, even since 2015 when right to work passed. Not one. In fact, if there's a worker in Wisconsin that has been rejected by the union by giving them more money than union dues, that would be a man bites dog story. Look, freedom works, and it works in Wisconsin, and it's working in the 26 other right to work states across the country.
No doubt about it, and that's the bottom line. I mean, we got to hold people accountable for their past actions when it comes to all kinds of different areas, and workers' rights and workers' freedom, that's a big area. And I don't know what Mr. Michaels thinks about it today. I'm not sure how many people have asked him the question about that past, but I think those are important questions to answer because, again, worker freedom is on the line. As we wrap up our conversation here, Mark, what can you do with a president who is the union president? What can you do in this time period? What do you need to fight this, this massive union force out there?
Well, the way we can do it is if there's individuals out there listening or individuals that hear this broadcast and they don't know what their rights are or they're feeling like their rights are being violated by forced unionism agreements or compulsory unionism agreements, no matter where they work, they can call us and get help. I mean, I think of the Janus decision that we won back in 2018, 4 years ago this June, that basically one guy stood up and said, I want to fight against forced unionism, and he got all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and he provided a precedent that protects every government worker in America today from being forced to pay union dues or fees. That type of courage is what America is all about, is how we were built, and it's what we need to continue to do, stand up and fight for individual freedom.
Absolutely. You're one of the hardest working men in America. I've told you that before. I mean it. You don't need a union to get you out there and do it. You love to work. You love to fight for worker freedom. So God bless you in that effort and all that you and your organization do, and we'll have you back on this show real soon. Okay, my friend?
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
You bet. You take care now. Mark Mix, he is president of National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation.